All right. Hi, everyone. Can you guys confirm if I'm audible? Just write anything in the chat, something like yes or no, something like that. And once we have a confirmation, then we can get started. Yes, I should be audible and I should be visible perfectly before we get started. Okay, I see 2 yeses in the chat. So I'm going to assume that I am both audible and visible. Can you also confirm if my volume is fine, like you guys are able to hear me properly? Or do I need to increase it or decrease it? Yes, is it fine? Okay, cool. I think we are good to go. We can get started. Let me present my screen very quickly. So I just hope my screen is also visible now. Yes, just write a quick +1 in the chat and then we'll get started. Yes. Fine. I think, yeah, my screen is also visible. I am also visible and I'm also audible. So let's get started. Guys, in this session, we will be talking about how you can, ace online coding tests. So one of the reasons why we are doing this session is because I see a lot of content on YouTube around how do you prepare for interviews, but there is very little content like anywhere around how do you actually prepare for online coding tests, right? And once you understand the whole hiring process, like where does the online coding test come into the picture, you will understand why they are so important, right? So let's get started. And before we actually talk about what is there in this session, it is important for all of you to know why am I credible enough to talk about this topic, right? So as for my introduction, I am an ICPC World Finalist. I have cleared the coding tests of I've cleared some of the most difficult coding tests. For example, I've cleared the coding test of Coordination, Hudson River Trading, IMC Trading, Google, Atlassian, and a lot of other companies. Now, there are quite a lot of companies, but I haven't mentioned all of them. I have only mentioned some significant ones, like only those companies which have a very difficult coding test. So Coordination is supposed to have a very difficult coding test. It is one of the toughest in India, right? So I got India rank 3 in this coding test that was organized by Coordination. Uh, I've also got India rank 1 in Google Kickstart. So for those of you who know about Google Kickstart, it was a competition that was run by Google until I think 2022. And they used to actually, give interview calls to people who used to perform very well in Google Kickstart. So I ended up getting India rank 1 in this. And I'm also a master on code forces with an India rank of 34. So I'm not very active right now on code forces, but when I was active almost, I think a year ago, I had an India rank of 34. And lastly, I'm also a software engineer at Google. So for those of you who have been following my YouTube channel, I haven't put out a lot of content around this. So, but yeah, I think this might be news for some of you. So I've recently started working at Google as well, right? So let's talk about, first of all, what is the hiring process like? So like on YouTube, if you go and search about how do you prepare for interviews or how do you get a job or an internship, you will see people talking about interviews, right? People talk about actually two major stages. One is resume shortlisting. There is a lot of content on YouTube where people will tell you, okay, this is how you need to make your resume. This is the template that you need to follow. These are certain things that you should have on your resume, right? And then there is this section where people talk about interviews. People say that, okay, these are the set of questions that you need to solve. This is how you need to present your answers in the interview. This is all that you need to talk about in the interviews, right? But there is this one stage in the middle which is about online coding test, which is something that people don't talk about, right? And I feel that this is one of the most important stages because primarily this is one stage which requires the most amount of preparation. Resume building is not that big of a deal. If you have your achievements, if you have your work experience listed, it's very easy to make a resume. Similarly, if you talk about preparing for interviews, it's not that big of a deal. It takes around 3 to 4 months. There is a set of there is, like, you can look at various sheets that are present on the internet, wherein they have a certain standard set of problems which you need to solve in order to prepare for interviews, right? But this online coding test is the part where people don't talk about it, right? And one of the big reasons why people don't talk about it is because they themselves haven't mastered this art of clearing the online coding tests, right? So in this session, we will be looking at how can you prepare for online coding tests, and you will also understand how they're a bit different from interviews, right? And before I get started, let me just quickly go over the chat and see if there is any important question. So Rana is saying, what will be the length of this stream? So I think this will be around an hour long, right? We will also be having a lot of Q&A. So this will be an hour long. Let me see. Yes, I don't think there is any important question here. Some people are asking me about my package. So this is something that I can't really reveal in a YouTube video, right? But yeah, I do get paid decent enough to live a good life. That's how I would put it. One of the things that somebody's saying is that nowadays the online assessments are getting tougher and tougher. Yes, that is the reality. These days, the online coding tests have become a lot harder than what they used to be around the COVID time or even before that. It's become a lot harder to crack online coding tests now, and that is why it is even more important for you to understand all the things that I'm going to be discussing in this session. Yes, you will also be getting the recording of this session. If you don't have enough time to attend it right now, feel free to drop off. You will be getting the recording of this soon after the session ends. Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, why do we care about online coding tests? Why is it so important? I mean, of course, it stands in the middle of the hiring process. This is one thing that you need to clear. Only then you get interviews. But what is it that makes it so very important? So let's talk about that. First of all, when you talk about interviews, what happens in interviews? In interviews, when you're interviewing, your interviewer actually wants you to get passed in that interview. They don't want to fail you in the interview. If you talk to any interviewer, if you talk to any recruiter, once you're into the interview pipeline, they want you to get hired. They don't want to reject you. But that's not how it works for online coding tests. And I tell you why. See, first of all, when it comes to online coding tests, there are a lot of people who are sitting for that. Okay, when you talk about interviews, companies usually want to take interviews of those people for whom they already know that they have some chance of clearing these interviews, right? But when it comes to online coding tests, companies usually have an all-India hiring drive. For example, if you look at Coordination, right? Coordination is now actually known as Trilogy Innovations. For those of you who might be getting confused, so Trilogy Innovations conducts, I think, an online coding test, which is an all-India coding test, almost 2 times a year, right? And in this coding test, there are so many people who are participating, and their only aim in this coding test is to reject 99% of the candidates, right? Now, think about it. How are you going to reject so many candidates? If there are 1 lakh people applying for a job, how do you get that, I will only interview 500 people? The only way in which you can do that is to make coding tests really very difficult, right? When you are interviewing, you might have seen that there is an interviewer who is giving you hints, right? When you're not able to solve the problem, the interviewer actually wants you to solve the problem, right? They don't want to reject you, they want to hire you. But when it comes to the coding test, they want to reject as many candidates as they want, right? And obviously, if you don't clear the coding test, since the interviews come after the online coding test, you will not get a chance to sit for interviews, right? So that is why the online coding tests become really very important. There are a lot of people who give this online coding test, but the people who actually get interview calls are very less, right? This funnel which you see on the screen here, this depicts the actual scenario here, right? Another reason why coding tests are very important and you should talk about them is because they require a lot of time for preparation, right? It's not like interviews that there is a set of 300 to 400 problems. If you're able to solve all of these 300 to 400 problems, you will be able to do very well in an interview. That's not how it works in an online coding test, right? And the whole idea behind this is, companies don't want you to actually reach the interview stage, right? And that is why they make the online coding test really very difficult. Now, how do they make it difficult? First of all, ask yourself. Right now, we are in an era where everyone knows about Striver's SD sheet, right? How many of you know about Striver's SD sheet? Or if not Striver's SD sheet, you might know about the top 100 interview questions on LeetCode, or you might know about Love Bubber's sheet for preparing for interviews. How many of you know about these sheets or these resources? Right? A lot of people know about them, right? And the whole point, like if you look at almost 3 to 4 years ago, or even 5 years ago, people were not that aware. These resources were not that common. If you were to go into a college, number of people who were actually solving LeetCode were probably 5% or 10%. But in today's world, almost 80 to 90% people already know about these resources. They are already solving all of these 300 to 400 practice problems, right? And now, if let's suppose you're in a college, okay, let's suppose some company comes to your college and they want to conduct an online coding test, and they want to interview a very minimal number of people. Let's suppose you have 100 people in your batch. The company only wants to interview 10 people. And if, let's suppose, 80 out of these 100 people have already done Striver's SD sheet, or if 80 out of these 100 people have already done most of the important questions on lead code, then how do you basically differentiate? How do you make sure that you only get those top 10 people into the interview pipeline? Right? And the whole idea behind this is to make the whole online coding test very, very difficult. Right? Some of you who have already, appeared for online coding tests, you might be able to relate with me what I'm saying right now. The online coding tests are a lot harder than interviews, right? Because the whole idea in online coding tests is to reject as many candidates as possible. And now if everyone's done those standard DSA problems, how do you differentiate? You differentiate by making it very difficult. You differentiate by not asking the same standard problems, right? So when it comes to online coding tests, you would not generally see, those standard lead code style problems that you are used to solving, right? What you would see in an online coding test is that it requires a lot more preparation time, and it contains a lot harder problems, right? So that is why online coding tests are something that you should care a lot about. Interviews, you can still prepare in about 3 to 4 months. But if you're planning to prepare for online coding tests, mind you, it is not going to take 3 to 4 months. It is going to take a lot more time than this. Okay. So before we actually move ahead, let me again go through the chat, and then we'll talk about this interviews versus coding tests scenario. So somebody saying, hi, bhaiya, I'm getting very demotivated due to cheating happening in online assessments. I haven't cheated in any of them. I'm sitting in the intern season happening at one of the IITs. Okay, so don't worry. There is an entire section where I will be talking about cheating. Okay, the whole cheating scenario which is happening in online coding tests, I will be talking about that towards the end of the session. Okay, so we will talk about it. Don't worry. Okay, so Karthik is saying, hey Priyansh, how to start with DSA and CP while managing job as a fresher? So Karthik, again, I would like to address these type of questions towards the end because they would break the flow of the session. If there is anything that you have doubt in the content that I've covered so far, feel free to ask right now. Okay, but if you have general doubts, don't worry. We will be having a whole Q&A towards the end of the session, and you can ask your doubts. Okay, so we've talked about this thing, the whole hiring process. Why do we care about coding tests? Because very few people actually clear them, and they are a lot harder than interviews, and they require a lot more time. So if you have any doubts so far, feel free to ask. Karthikeyan is asking how much are online assessments at Google rating range? I don't understand what you mean by that. If you're trying to ask me what is the average or the equivalent rating of online assessment questions that are asked in Google compared to code forces, then I would say problems are rated from 1400 all the way up till 1900 based on code forces rating of problems. Okay, cool. Let's move forward. I don't see any other important questions here. Okay, and for the questions that I am seeing, I have already covered them in the slides towards the end. Okay, so first of all, let's now talk about the difference between interviews and coding tests. What is it that is common and what is it that is different? Okay, first let's talk about what happens in interviews. So in interviews, there are multiple things that are supposed to be tested. One is that your problem solving has to be tested, which is tested using DSA. Okay, and what happens in this scenario is that you're asked standard code style DSA problems. So all of you who have done these sheets like Striver's SD sheet, Lovebubber's DSA sheet, you are in a good state because these are the type of problems that are asked in an interview. The very standard problems which everyone should know the answer of. These are the type of problems that are asked in interviews. Next, what you're tested on is your projects. So when you're interviewing, you are not just tested on your problem solving skills. It is also expected that you have built some technical projects while you were at college or while you were doing some boot camp, right? So when it comes to projects or when it comes to the other aspects, all the other aspects are not that important as compared to the standard DSA, standard lead code style DSA problems. Whenever you are interviewing for any company, and here I'm talking about specifically product-based companies, not startups, because in most of the startups, you don't even have an online coding test. Okay, most of these startups, they have an internal hiring, which we will talk about again towards the end. So when it comes to product-based companies, the main thing that is tested is your problem solving skills, which is done by asking you standard lead code style DSA problems. Okay, All the other aspects which are projects, computer science subjects, and system design, these are not that big. Okay, 80% of the interview scenario, or the 80% of the interview testing would revolve around DSA problems. The rest 20% would revolve around your projects, your computer science fundamentals. In this computer science fundamentals, the topics that come up are operating systems, database management systems, computer networks, oops, right? And basically basic stuff which is there in the computer science syllabus, right? So all of you are already in the computer science domain in your college, you would already be learning all of these things. For people who are in some other domains, you will have to specifically learn these. And how you can do this is by going over to this YouTube channel called Gate Smashers. Okay, Gate Smashers is one YouTube channel which contains all the information about computer science subjects. OS, DBMS, computer networks, oops, everything is present there. Okay, this is just one channel that you need to follow, and you will be done with computer science fundamentals. And the next one is system design. For system design, when it comes to freshers, you are not tested on very difficult concepts. What is expected from you as a fresher is that you know basic terms, you know where to use a load balancer, you know how proxies work, right? Basic stuff. And now for preparing for system design, you can again refer to Gaurav Sen's YouTube channel. He has an entire playlist where he covers the basic concepts around system design. So that should be done, right, for interviews. Now let's talk about what happens in coding tests. In coding tests, like you already know, the scene is that we want to reject as many candidates as possible, right? So because of this, you are not tested on standard lead code style problems. Why? Because everyone has already done that. Okay. So what you're actually tested on is non-standard DSA problems. Now let me give you an example of a non-standard DSA problem. Let's suppose you might have seen a standard lead code problem which is around, let's suppose, longest common subsequence. Okay, you're given two strings. Let's suppose you want to find out the longest common subsequence in these two strings, right? You can do it using dynamic programming. This is a very standard problem, but this is not the type of problem that you will be tested in the online coding test, right? What will actually happen is that you will be given a whole story where, even though the problem might require you to do a longest common subsequence, but you will not be able to identify it so easily, right? What you will have to do is you will have to understand the entire story. You will have to then make some observations, and then based on those observations, you might get this idea that, okay, I might want to use a longest common subsequence problem, or the longest common subsequence algorithm here, right, which is done using dynamic programming. So what happens in online coding tests is that you might be given those same standard problems, but there might be a story on it, right? And in a lot of scenarios, you might not even be given any standard algorithm. What you might be given is, let's suppose, a greedy problem, right? And when it comes to greedy problems, there are very limited standard algorithms. Okay, you might be given a completely random greedy problem which you might have never seen before, right? And the whole idea behind doing this is to make sure that people who are attempting these online coding tests, they know a lot more than these standard DSA problems. They have done a lot more harder problems, right? So I hope this slide itself is clear to all of you. What is the difference between online coding tests and the interviews, right? One thing which is common in between both of them is the concept of DSA, right? And where does DSA come into the picture? When you're looking at these non-standard CP problems that are asked to you in coding tests, they will be based on data structures and algorithms. You will have to use some data structures, you will have to use some algorithms to solve these problems. Similarly, when you talk about the standard lead code style problems in the interviews, there also DSA is used. Right? So DSA is one thing which is common in both of these things. You will have to be a master at DSA to be good at both online coding tests and interviews. You cannot skip it. Fine. Let me again look at the chat and see if we have any other doubts. So Anant is saying, are the things taught in colleges enough for system design, OOPS, DBMS, etc.? So Anant, the things that are taught in colleges are enough for computer science subjects, but they're not enough for system design. Most of the colleges don't have a course on system design, and for that you will have to refer to some other resources. Right? But looking at the hiring trends, I feel that with time, the colleges are also going to introduce system design into their curriculum. But again, for freshers, it is not required that you're able to design huge systems. What is just expected is that you know basic terms, you know the meaning of those terms, and you know where these things are used. Okay. So somebody's asking, is third year late to start CP? No, it's not late. You can still start CP. So Aman is saying what you think should be the rating on coding profile such that they can easily crack the coding test. I will talk about that. Aman, that is towards the end of the session. I will talk about it. So somebody is saying, are division 2 contests on code forces and online coding tests similar? Yes, they're very similar. Where to practice story type problems? I will be talking about that. Don't worry. Okay, I think we've covered most of these questions. Let's move forward, right? So now, first of all, let's talk about, there are basically two categories of people here who are preparing for online coding tests. One of them already know DSA. These are the type of people who have already done Stivers SD sheet. They have looked at most of the standard problems on lead code, right? And they feel confident in DSA. This is the first category of students. The second category of students are those who don't who have a lot of time and they haven't started with anything, right? So there is going to be a different path for both of these two types of people. If you are somebody who has already done DSA, right? And I am assuming if you have already done DSA, you might be having very less time now until your interview start. You might be having close to 3 to 6 months, right? Before your interviews actually, before your interviews or your online coding tests actually start. So for these type of people who have already done DSA, but they haven't done any competitive programming, right, so far, what I would recommend you to do is to attempt a lot of contests, right? Now, why do I say this? See, when you're going for an online coding test, what will happen? You will be given a bunch of problems. There will be a limited amount of time, and you will be all alone. There will be nobody to help you. You will be all alone, and there will be very limited time for you to solve all the problems, right? The same scenario comes when you're attempting a contest on Code Forces, Code Chef, AdCoder, or Lead Code, right? Some of you who have already done Lead Code contests, you are in a much better scenario than those people who have just solved the standard problems, right? When you are solving the standard problems, what happens? You have a problem, you try to think of the solution. If you don't get the solution, you actually look at the official editorial and then you code it up, right? You don't really care about the time. You don't really care about the pressure that you have to be in while attempting that problem, right? But in the contest, what happens when you're attempting a Code Forces, Code Chef, Lead Code, or AdCoder contest? You are given a bunch of problems. You have a limited set of time, right? And you are all alone. The same scenario which happens in online coding tests. So if you have already done DSA, just go onto these platforms, start attempting contests. Okay. Now, when you're going onto these platforms like Code Forces, Code Chef, you have to understand that they are a bit on the advanced side. What you have done in DSA is standard problem solving. What you will be getting in these contests are non-standard problems. You will be getting story-based problems. You will not be given standard problems in these contests, right? So initially you will perform terrible, okay? And what you have to do is you have to not associate your skill level with the rating on these platforms, right? You have already done DSA, right? You are not somebody who is starting out right now, your programming journey. You have already done DSA. Now you are only attempting these contests to get good at problem solving. Nobody gives a shit about your rating at this point, okay? Once you just have 3 to 6 months remaining in your preparation, right? So don't go onto these platforms thinking that you will become a candidate master, you will become an expert on Code Force. It does not matter. What matters is that you get into the mindset of attempting contests, you get into the habit of attempting contests, and you feel comfortable while attempting contests, right? This is what you need to do if you've done DSA. Next, what you need to do is that even if you're not attempting contests, you need to try out a lot of non-standard problems. What do I mean by non-standard problems? Leave behind Lead Code. Lead Code does not contain non-standard problems. Go on to any platform like Code Forces, Code Chef, or AdCoder and start solving random problems. Okay, this is one thing that you can do. If you don't want to do this, if you don't want to go onto these platforms and start solving random problems, you can check out the CP31 sheet that I made by myself. So this is one sheet which contains problems from 800 rating all the way up till 1600 rating based on Code Forces, right? And these are all non-standard problems, but every single problem here in this sheet is going to teach you some new concept, right? So if you want, I can even show it to you. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. I hope my screen is visible. So this is the sheet that you can refer to. This contains problems from 800 all the way till 1600 rating. And every single rating here contains 31 problems, right? So you can go on to these problems and every single problem is going to teach you something new, right? And these are all non-standard problems. So for those of you who are in the habit of going for sheets, right? You might be in the habit of solving Stivers SD sheet, or you might feel more comfortable solving problems from a sheet, and you don't want to basically go onto random platforms and look for problems yourself. You can come and solve the CP31 sheet. This is perfect for those who have already done DSA and who are looking to solve a lot of non-standard problems. You will get into the habit of solving non-standard story-based problems once you attempt a good enough number of problems from here. Okay, so this is one thing that you can refer to. Fine. Let me share my other tab. 1 second. Just a second. Okay, so we are here now. What I said is that you have to attempt a lot of contests and you have to attempt a lot of non-standard problems. You will not find non-standard problems on LeetCode or Geeks for Geeks. These are not the platforms to solve non-standard problems. You might be referring to these platforms when you want to prepare for interviews. But when you're preparing for online coding tests, you have to solve a lot of non-standard story-based problems, right? So you can refer to the CP31 sheet. And one thing that I would recommend you to do, even when you're practicing, right? Like even if you're in the habit of solving sheets, like if you have made it your if you have made up your mind that you are not going to solve any CP problems, you're only going to refer to standard DSA problems, even then you can get much better. You can improve your chances of performing well at an online coding test by solving problems in a time bound manner. Whenever you pick a problem, don't assume that you have the entire day to solve it. Just assume that you have 30 to 40 minutes to come up with a solution and code it, right? Once you start attempting problems like this, you will always feel that pressure that, okay, I need to do it fast. Fine. And the last thing that I would recommend you to do, which I also did in my journey, is to attempt mock coding tests on HackerEarth. HackerEarth contains a section which has mock online coding tests. So they have these previously asked questions from Google, Microsoft, Atlassian, all of these companies. They have compiled an entire resource where they put you into an online coding test type of scenario, and you get to attempt these previously asked problems, right? So this is something that you can also do, right? Again, I will look at the chat for 1 more minute, and then I'll move ahead. So Anand is saying, are we ranked on basis of time and online assessments? Yes, you are ranked based on time and the number of problems. I will tell you how you are ranked. So let's suppose there are 2 people who are attempting the same online coding test. Let's suppose the first person solves 4 problems and the second person solves 3 problems. Then the first person is obviously better. If let's suppose both of them solve the same number of problems, let's suppose both of them solve 4 problems, then you're ranked on the basis of amount of time that you took to solve all of these problems, right? So even if you're solving all the problems, you are ranked on the basis of the amount of time you're taking. Okay. Cool. I don't think there are any other important doubts. So guys, don't mind it if I'm skipping your question, because like most of these questions I will be addressing, as we progress through the session. So I'm skipping through some of the questions, but don't mind, I will be answering them. Okay. Cool. Let's move forward. Now let's talk about people who have a lot of time. Okay. These are people who might be in their first year of college or in the second year of college, who haven't started preparing for either interviews or online coding tests. For all of these people, I would recommend one thing: start with competitive programming. Okay. Now, there's a disclaimer that I want to put out before I actually start talking about all of these things. I also run a course on competitive programming, right? So you might say that, okay, Priyansh, you're just telling us to do competitive programming because you have a course on competitive programming, right? But I'm going to tell you, my course, you don't have to take my course to do competitive programming. All of you here can do competitive programming on your own in free by looking at resources on YouTube, right? Here, my aim of telling you to do competitive programming is not to tell you that I have a course and just purchase that course. That's not the aim. What I want to tell you is that if you start with competitive programming, by the time your online coding tests come or by the time your interviews come, you will find them all a cakewalk. It will become really very easy for you and you will thank me for it, right? So when it comes to competitive programming, I saw a lot of people asking this in the chat, that what is a level on code forces which we should achieve, after which we can assume that we are going to do very well in online coding tests. So for that, I would recommend that you reach expert on code forces. This is like 1600 rating on code forces. If you reach this rating, I can tell you that online coding tests are going to become very easy for you, right? And before I actually move to other points, it is very important for you to understand that the rating here again does not matter. It does not matter if you're 1600 rated on Code Forces, but your skills on Code Forces are that of a newbie. It will not do you any good. Here, when I'm saying you have to become an expert on Code Forces, I am telling you to become an expert on Code Forces without cheating, on your own, independently. Right? Once you become an expert on Code Forces independently, that is the time you can say that you have good enough skills that you can crack any interview, any online coding test. Okay, fine. Again, not trying to promote the concept of rating here, because I know a lot of you here are going to assume that, okay, I will become an expert on Code Forces by any means, and I will do very well in online coding tests. That's not how it works. When I'm talking about expert, I'm talking about the skills that are associated with becoming an expert on Code Forces. I'm not talking about the rating. Again, the rating does not matter here. Okay. 1 second. Yeah. Moving to the next point, what you should do is that you should try to attempt a lot of contests, and while you have time, try to also attempt a lot of international CP contests. One of them is ICPC, the other one is Facebook Hacker Cup. CodeChef also used to run their CodeChef Snackdown. I'm not sure if they're planning to do it again. Google used to run their online, like online coding tests, online coding competitions rather. Right? They've stopped doing them. Not sure if they'll continue. But right now, the two major contests that you can look after or look forward to are ICPC and Facebook Hacker Cup. Right? You should try and attempt these contests, because the great part about these is that again, you're solving a lot of non-standard problems. But if you end up performing well in these contests, you can also boast about them in your resume and also during your interviews. Right? So if you like, for example, in my case, I went to ICPC World Finalist. Right? Now, whenever I'm interviewing for any company, I can just directly say that, okay, I've qualified for the ICPC World Finals. I represented India in that. And they would, like, even before the interview actually starts, they would have some notion in their mind that, okay, this person already has good problem solving skills. Right? So if you're attempting international CP contests, or if you're getting really good ranks in some of the CP contests, you can talk about them in your interviews, and you can put them in your resume. Right? So it will also help you build your resume as you do a lot of CP, with time. I also want to address this, point about DSA. So when I talk to people, a lot of these folks tell me that, okay, I'm in my first year of college. Should I start preparing for DSA right away? Right? And my recommendation to all of these people who are planning to do DSA right from first year of college, is to not do DSA initially, but start with competitive programming. Okay, DSA is something that you can even master within 6 months. Right? Even if you don't know a single programming language, you can do DSA in just 6 months and be well prepared for your interviews. But if you're already having a competitive programming background, you will not even require so much time to prepare for DSA. Right? I will give you an example of one of my friends. So my friend, like, he's also my ICPC teammate. He works at Tower Research now. When we were having our internship drive at college, like, we both are from IIIT Delhi. So Tower Research came to our college, and when we were having our internship drive, my friend only prepared for the interviews for just a week. Right? He only went through all the standard problems on lead code in a week. He did not take more than that time. Right? And he qualified for Tower Research. Right? The only condition here is that he was already a candidate master on Code Forces. Right? So even if you're an expert on Code Forces, or even something in like a candidate master on Code Forces, when you're preparing for these interviews, you will find them a cakewalk. Right? So it's not like you will do CP first and then you will have to do DSA again. Once you are good at CP, DSA itself is like, it has a very big overlap with CP. Right? So by the end, you will also you will not require so much time to prepare for DSA. Okay. So I hope this is clear to all of you. There are two types of people here. One who already have done DSA but have not done CP. This is what you need to do. Attempt a lot of contests. Don't go after the rating. Attempt a lot of non-standard problems. You can check out the CP31 sheet, and attempt mock coding tests on HackerEarth before your coding test, before your online coding test of any company. For people who have a lot of time, try and start with competitive programming if you're aiming to do very well in these online coding tests. And what you should aim for is to become an expert on Code Forces. Again, the rating here is not important. Try to get the skills that are associated with an expert. Right? Try to attempt a lot of contests. Try attempting some international CP contests, because you can boast about them if you do very well in them. And overall, it's a very good experience, right? Attempting these contests like ICPC or Facebook Hacker Cup. And finally, talking about this whole DSA point, if you're in your first year of college, you don't need to start with DSA, because trust me, if you do DSA right now, by the time your interviews come, you are going to forget all the stuff, right? So you will have to do it again. Fine. Let's take a 1 minute break and then we'll move forward. And before that, before we move forward, I will just look at the chat here. Somebody saying, can a third year, fifth semester student also follow this? If you're talking about the session, then yes, you can follow the session. This is going to be useful for you. So Anand is saying how to make a resume get selected if we, as we will not have anything to write if we have only done CP. So projects are also important. Yes, projects are important. Again, guys, the whole aim of this session is not to tell you how you can prepare for placements. It is to tackle the online coding test part of the placements. Okay. So all the other things, like if you talk about interviews, I am not talking about how do you prepare for interviews in this session, because there are already enough resources on the internet for that. I'm only talking about how do you prepare for online coding test. The other aspects which are about resume shortlisting, of course, you will have to make your resume yourself. Talking about interviews, of course, you will have to prepare for them. And also talking about the projects, right? You will have to make some projects as well. So all of the other things you will have to do. So Aman is saying, is tier 3 to HFT possible? So it is possible, Aman, if you become like an international grandmaster on Codeforces. But honestly, if you talk about HFTs care a lot about your brand value. So if you're from an IIT, they would care about it. If you are, let's suppose, an international grandmaster or a grandmaster on Codeforces, they would care about it. If you're saying that you don't have a college tag associated, you don't have any big achievements associated with yourself, but you're very good in DSA, an HFT is not going to hire you. That's the harsh reality. You will have to have some leverage which you can present to them. Can I do CP in Java? I am doing, yes, you can do CP in Java as well. Absolutely. Is aptitude for maths helpful in CP? Yes, of course. If you're good in maths, you are going to do very well in DSA and CP both. Topics like number theory, interactive problems are not asked in online assessments. So isn't that a waste of time to learn doing CF? I don't understand how Codeforces is related to number theory and interactive problems here. Codeforces does contain a lot of problems on dynamic programming, graphs, trees, binary search, right? In fact, interactive problems are a very small portion of Codeforces. So doing Codeforces is definitely not a waste of time. I mean, of course, it's a waste of time for people who don't enjoy it, right? If you don't enjoy something, you should probably not do it. So if you feel that Codeforces is like making you feel scared, you don't like it, don't do it. Right? There are other platforms that you can refer to. Okay. Cool. Let's move forward. Let's move forward then. So here are some important points that you need to consider about online coding tests. The first point is that when you're going for interviews, there is a human factor that is involved here. When you're interviewing, there is a human interviewer in front of you. If you don't perform very well, or if you're not able to get the solution for some problem, the interviewer is going to give you hints. Right? They're going to help you. Basically, the whole idea behind interviews is they want to hire you. They don't want to reject you, right? So they would help you as much as possible. You would not be all alone. But when it comes to online coding tests, there is nobody really to help you, right? You're all alone. You have to solve problems independently, right? And because of this, because of the whole online coding test scenario, when you're setting for the coding test, there are so many other people who are attempting the same online coding test. So now how do you perform better than them? That's the whole idea, right? It's a zero sum game. Only few people here are going to qualify for the interviews. Not everyone is going to qualify. So you have to be really fast at coding and also debugging, right? Just saying that you have to be fast at coding is not enough, because when you're attempting problems that you haven't seen before, you're going to commit some mistakes. You're going to write code that you think is correct, but it will not be correct, right? So there is also a very big aspect of debugging. You have to get very, very fast at debugging your code, right? So that is why solving problems in a time bound manner is important, because you need to be fast at thinking about the logic, fast at coding them, and also very fast at debugging if you run into any issues, right? The third thing that I want to talk about is that coding tests are also sometimes in very different formats. For example, one of the formats that I have seen in online coding tests is that they will have three problems, but the second problem will be related to the first one, and the third problem will be related to the second one. What this means is that if you haven't solved the first problem, don't even think about approaching the second and the third problem, right? This is one of the formats that I've seen in online coding tests. Not very common, but I have seen it. So if you're going for an online coding test, you should expect some surprises. Okay. Similarly, you might get problems which are, let's suppose, very long, right? The story is really long. You have to figure out, okay, what are the important points in this entire story, right? So don't imagine the online coding test problems to be similar to your lead code style problems where they just tell you what to do, right? You will not be told exactly what needs to be done. You will be given an entire story, and then figuring out what needs to be done will be on you, right? So coding tests can be in a bit of a difficult or a different format. Another thing that you need to do during your online coding tests is you need to focus a lot on constraints. What do I mean by constraints? So let's suppose you're given a problem in which you are given the array, right? You're given an array, and the size of this array is given as, let's suppose, 1,000. Okay. If you're told that the constraint on the size of this array is going to be at max 1,000, then you know that order of n square type of solution will work here, right? But order of n cube will not. So when you're preparing for interviews, I have seen that people don't really look at the constraints. They just try to look at, okay, what is the best time complexity that I can solve this problem in, and they try to come up with a solution based on that time complexity, right? But in online coding tests, you are not even told that what is the most optimal time and space complexity for this problem, right? So you need to be in the habit of looking at the constraints and figuring out, okay, what will work, what will not, right? Yeah. And yeah, lastly, I want to talk about this. Like I've already said this a couple of times. Everybody has done standard DSA, right? You have to solve harder problems to stand out. Just solving a sheet of 300 problems might not be enough, right? Everyone in your college might be doing it. And this has become really common now. It was not very common 5 years ago when people didn't even know about DSA so much. Today, every single person who is in a tech college, almost like 90% of these people, they know about DSA, right? So you need to solve harder problems in order to stand out. Okay, I'll again look at the chat for 1 minute and I'll grab some water. Okay, let me look at the chat. So Sakya is saying, which level of TLE would you suggest to crack online assessments? So I would recommend going for either level 3 or 4, right? Depending on your skill set and depending on the topics that you want to learn. I think level 3 is a perfect starting point for all the people who have done some problem solving, who who are very comfortable in at least one programming language, who have tried out DSA, right, on their own. You can go for level 3 or 4, depending on the topics that you want to learn. But again, I would recommend starting from level 3 and then doing level 4 after that. Somebody saying, I'm a specialist on code forces right now. My 4th year just started. I am pushing for expert. Should I focus on anything else in particular? Again, I would say that, your rating will not really matter so much here. But what would matter is that you're very comfortable in important topics like dynamic programming, graphs, trees, bit manipulation, binary search, right? Trees. These are the type of topics that are much more important than your rating. So if you are in your last year of college and if you feel that you're already a specialist on code forces, I don't see a valid point of trying to reach expert unless you already have a lot of time or you're already very good at these important topics. So if there is a trade-off, try and spend more time in mastering these topics rather than trying to become an expert on code forces, right? Because becoming an expert on code forces, you would essentially have to be very good at greedy problems, constructive algorithmic problems, which are not important in online coding tests, right? Somebody saying, just curious, why is DSA specifically not taught in TLE level 4? TLE Eliminators is not a course for DSA. We primarily focus on competitive programming, right? It is just a byproduct. Like, if you're enrolling in a course at TLE Eliminators, and if you're doing very well in your online coding tests and your interviews, it's just a byproduct, right? If you become very good at competitive programming, you're bound to do very well in online coding tests and interviews. So we never say that, okay, anybody who is joining TLE Eliminators is going to do very well in online coding tests. But what we do say is that you are going to become a good competitive programmer, right? So people who enroll in TLE Eliminators, they do it for multiple reasons. Some of them just want to do CP for fun. Some of them want to go for ICPC, right? Some of them only want to prepare for interviews, and that's also fine, right? So somebody saying, does on-campus and off-campus matter? Yes. On-campus placements and off-campus placements are a bit different. Off-campus placements or off-campus coding tests are a lot harder than on-campus coding tests, right? I can give you multiple examples here. I have seen people in my own family, right? When it comes to online coding tests, I have seen their questions, right? When I talk to them and they tell me that these are the type of questions that were asked in their online coding tests, and if I compare it to my off-campus applications that I filed so far, it's a big difference, right? On-campus coding tests are a lot easier than off-campus coding tests. But when it comes to on-campus coding tests, they also look at your CGPA. Right? When some company comes to your college, usually these companies have a CGPA criteria that you have to have a CGPA of 8 or 7 before you can sit for their online coding test. Okay. Mehul is saying, how do we think about optimized solution even though are better? How we think about optimized solution even though our better solution already accepted on contest? Why do you have to think of a better solution? So what Mehul is asking is that if my solution is already accepted on any contest or any online coding test, do I need to think of a more optimized solution? No, you don't need to do that. That is why constraints are important. Right? People who are in the habit of attempting contests on Code Forces, all of these platforms, they are in the habit of analyzing constraints, right? Because the constraints tell you how much of the optimization you need to apply to your solution, right? Okay. Any plans to start level 1 course in Python? Not yet. We're not planning to start it in Python. I think C++ is a good enough language to start competitive programming with. So yeah. Cool. Let's move forward. Let's talk about some bonus points that I want all of you to consider while preparing for online coding tests. So I know there are a lot of people who don't who don't like the idea of competitive programming, right? And their primary reason is that they feel really demotivated when they look at other people performing very well compared to them, right? So for these type of people, I would recommend you to attempt a lot of virtual contests, right? So you can go on to LeetCode and Code Forces. You will see this option of virtual contests. What are virtual contests? So these are, these are past contests which you can attempt in a live contest like environment. So what they would do is that they would pick up a past contest and they would put you in the contest and they would tell you that, okay, this is how you're doing in the entire contest. It would look like an entire live contest, but it is just that it would be a past contest. Right? So you will not be actually competing with anybody, right? So you can attempt a lot of virtual contests. And there are a lot of people who want to attempt, let's suppose, 2 to 3 contests a day, right? Let's suppose you have your online coding test coming up in 10 days and you want to get really good at it, so you want to attempt 2 to 3 contests every single day. You can't do that because there are no live contests happening so frequently, right? For this, what you can do is you can again attempt virtual contests. The second thing that I would recommend everyone to do here is to upsolve contests, right? It does not make sense to just go and attempt a contest and then forget about it, right? If there are, let's suppose, 5 problems in a contest, you were able to solve 3 out of them during the contest. After the contest, you should make it a habit that you solve 1 extra problem. Doesn't matter how many problems you solve during the contest, but after the contest, try and solve 1 more problem. Even if it requires you to look at the solution, it is absolutely fine. But that is how you're going to learn, right? That is how you're going to push your limits. Third thing that I would recommend to everyone here is to try out CP algorithms. I know most of the people who are preparing for interviews and like placements, they are not really aware about CP algorithms website, right? This is a website. This is not like a term, not a phrase. This is a website, cpalgorithms.com. You can go onto this website and you can check out various different algorithms. The cool part about CP algorithms is that for every standard algorithm or for every standard data structure, they have a list of non-standard problems, right? So when you're reading the blog of any algorithm, if you scroll down the entire page, you will find a lot of problems that you can solve on that same concept, right? I can even show it to you here. Just give me 1 second. Right, so let me share this tab. I hope this tab is visible. So let's suppose we want to learn about diagram, right? So you can go onto this section on CP algorithms. You can read the entire blog. And once you come down, you will see all of these problems, right? All of these are non-standard problems based on the same Dijkstra concept. So I love this website for this reason, that they have this section of practice problems. And also I feel it is really amazing compared to Geeks for Geeks or LeetCode, because they have much more optimized implementations of the same algorithms, right? And they're all correct. You will not find mistakes on this website like other websites, right? So I remember when I was attempting a contest on Codeforces, I was looking at the implementation of an algorithm from Geeks for Geeks. When I submitted the code, I was getting a wrong answer repeatedly. And at the end of the contest, I realized that the implementation on Geeks for Geeks was wrong, right? So this is something that you will not find on this website. It is a really amazing resource for learning any algorithm, right? So let me share this again. Okay. And one more thing that I want to recommend all of you here to do is to treat these 4 topics very, with a lot of importance. Okay. One is dynamic programming, one is graphs, the other one is trees, and the last one is binary searching on answer. Okay. When I talk about these 4 topics, these are very important, right? And the type of problems that you're asked around these topics in both online coding tests and interviews are a lot different from what you see on LeetCode, right? You are even in interviews, when you look at these type of topics, you are generally asked difficult non-standard problems, right? So these are 4 topics that you should master at any cost. Even if it requires you to spend almost 1 to 2 months mastering one of these topics, I think it is worth spending that much time, right? So make sure you master all of these 4 topics: dynamic programming, graphs, trees, and binary searching and answer. When I talk about trees, I am not referring to binary trees, right? Binary trees, I think everyone knows about binary trees. Here I'm talking about generic trees. Okay, so you can learn about these topics on your own. You can go onto YouTube, search about various resources to learn these topics, and you are going to find a lot of resources, right? Although you can do these topics here at TLE Eliminators as well. We have a level 3 and 4 course which cover all these topics. But again, I am not here to promote TLE Eliminators, right? I'm not going to tell you that I am conducting this session because I want you to enroll in TLE Eliminators. You can learn all of these topics for free as well. Right? Cool. Now let's talk about one very important thing. We have talked about how to clear coding tests, but I think it would be unfair if I not talk about this thing, right? Which is that how can you bypass a coding test? There are a huge number of amazing developers that we have in India, but a lot of these people are not able to get into big tech because they are not good at competitive programming, or they haven't done a lot of data structures algorithms, right? For these people, I have I have this slide for all of you. You can also bypass a coding test, right? And how you can do it is that some companies are there which, if you get a referral in, you are not asked to give a coding test, right? And then there are some companies who only have internal openings. For example, I was working at Zomato, I think last year, and Zomato only has internal hiring. what happens in internal hiring is that Zomato does not go out and publish it on their website that we are hiring. What they do is that they tell their own employees that, okay, if you have some people in your network, please refer them for this job opening. So I also got hired at Zomato through an internal opening. I was not asked to give an online coding test, right? So there are these two methods in which you can in some cases skip the online coding test. Again, again, I want to mention this thing that it is not like that you only get a referral and you are able to skip the online coding test for all the companies. Most of the companies, in fact 90% of them, they will still ask you to give the online coding test even if you have a referral. They will just consider your application on priority over others, but they will still ask you to give an online coding test. But there are some companies, and you can research about them, there are some companies which, if you have a referral for, you will not be asked to give the online coding test. And similarly, if you can find internal openings somewhere in your network, that is the best part. You can skip an entire stage in your hiring process, right? Okay, I'll wait for one more minute before we get started. Yep. So Aman is saying how much you used internet in between CF contest and for what? So Code Forces, Code Chef, Lead Code, all of these contests are like they don't have a policy of you not using any internet resources, right? So you are allowed to use internet resources, but it's not like like have you seen these open book exams that you have in your college? Even if you have a book, you can't really do much. This is the type of contest that you have on Code Forces, Code Chef. Even though they're open internet, you can go and search on the internet whatever you find, but you will not really find enough stuff to solve problems, right? So but you can use the internet to to get standard implementations. Like let's suppose you want to implement an algorithm. For that, it is not expected that you think about the algorithm on spot. If you know there is an algorithm like this, you can get the implementation from the internet, right? And a lot of people do that. In fact, I have an entire repository on my GitHub where I maintain the templates of all the important algorithms and data structures, which I use in competitive programming contests, right? And also, I think I should mention this as well. Some of the online coding tests are also open internet. What do I mean by this? That companies, they don't have a proctored online coding test where you are allowed to use the internet, but you're allowed to use the internet to an extent. You're not allowed to go and talk to your friend and say that, okay, give me the solution of this problem. What you can do is that, okay, there is an implementation of Dijkstra or some other algorithm you don't know. Go and search on the internet and get that implementation. That is allowed. But you know that in the online coding test, nobody's really testing you on standard algorithms. They are testing you on non-standard problems. So implementing that standard algorithm is going to be just a sub part of the problem. Okay. Cool. Let's now address this concept of cheating, right? There's a lot of cheating that is happening in online coding tests. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this topic because I feel it is not really relevant. People who are smart enough, people who are not dumb, are know how to not react in these situations, and they know how to basically do the right thing. Okay. So for people who are people who are getting into these malpractices of cheating during online coding tests, let me tell you, there are multiple stages in which you will suck at life. One is that even if you clear the online coding test, you still have to appear for interviews, right? In the interview, there is going to be a person who's going to be talking to you. You will not be able to get help from your friends. Secondly, if you're somebody who even clears the interviews and your online coding test by cheating, you are definitely going to suck on your job, because all the other people who have come into this job by using fair means, they're going to be doing much better than you, right? And mind you, when you are, like, I can tell you from my own experience, once you're into the job, the amount of help that you get or the amount of spoon feeding that you get is really minimal. Okay, everyone has their targets at the end of the year. When you go into any company, they're going to have some targets that, okay, this is what you need to deliver by the end of this quarter, this is what you need to deliver by the end of this month. Everyone has their own targets, everyone there has their own deadlines, right? People can only help you up to a certain extent. They cannot spoon feed you. So if you're thinking that, okay, you will get into a company with a huge package, they're going to give you some work and then you're going to cheat in that work as well, it is not going to work out, right? So it is high time that even if you're cheating, you stop doing that and resort to fair means, right? Don't get into practices that are going to spoil your future, right? And I also want to mention this thing that a lot of these cheaters today, they don't fear the aspect when they Like, they don't look at the aspect when they would get caught, right? I'll give you one scenario. Let's suppose you cheated in an online coding test, and let's suppose you cheated with your friend. Okay. Now you get into a company, and now your friend who has some problem with you, they go onto the internet and they tell everyone that, okay, this person got into the company by cheating. Okay. Now think about the entire scenario. What would be your image inside the company, right? I am pretty sure the company is going to ban you, or fire you firstly, and then ban you for any future hirings. And now think about the aspects that are going to come after that. Once you start applying for other companies, think about it. What is going to happen, right? So I don't want to get into the aspect where I want to scare you. I am just telling you all of these things so that with time you learn, and you start doing things which are sane enough, right? So and obviously, if you do something which you don't, if you get something which you don't deserve, you are never going to believe in yourself, right? Imagine yourself having a rating of 1600 on code forces, which you have only got by cheating. Now if some junior of yours comes to you and says that, okay, please give me tips on how do I get to expert, think about what is the level of respect that you would have for yourself. Wouldn't you feel ashamed of yourself that, okay, you cheated to became an expert on code forces? Now somebody is asking you for some mentorship, and you yourself have no clue, right? And think about the entire scenario again. Like, let's suppose you get into a company, you cheated during the online coding tests, you somehow also cheated during the interviews. Now your relative, or let's suppose your own family member, comes to you and says, I need some tips to prepare for this coding test. What would you tell them? Go and cheat. Is this what you would tell them, right? So just think about it in the long run, right? In the long run, it does not really help, right? So this is what I would say for the cheaters. And I would also say that cheating for getting a rating on code forces is pure stupidity. Okay. And by now you would have understood this. People who have attended this session attentively, you would have understood this, that your rating on code forces has nothing to do with how you're going to do in an interview or in an online coding test, right? But the skills that you have corresponding to the rating on your code forces is what is going to set you apart. If you're an expert on code forces, if you have cheated your way to an expert on code forces, it does not depict that you're going to perform very well in an online coding test or an interview. But if you're an expert on code forces, which you have gained using your own knowledge, by being completely independent, that is going to pay off during the online coding test and the interview, right? So yeah, that is what I would say for people who are resorting to cheating. Okay. I mean, I don't really understand, that why do people really cheat for a rating? I mean, okay, if it was the scenario that, okay, if you become an expert on code forces, you will get $1 million. That was a different scenario. Okay, you would want to cheat because you want to get $1 million. But what are you really going to do with that rating? Right? What will you really do? Would you say in the interview that I'm an expert on code forces? And let me also give you one more example. So when I go into an interview and I tell that I'm a master on code forces, I get asked a lot more difficult problems than other interviews. Why does that happen? Because in the interview, the interviewer wants to put you in a difficult position. They don't want to give you easy problems which you already have the answer for. They want to test how can you solve problems during the interview itself. Okay. So even if you have a high rating on code forces, talking about that rating in an interview is like it's like a suicide. It's like saying that, okay, I'm a master on code forces, but I possess the skills of a pupil, right? It's as bad. Now, for people who are not cheating, who are resorting to fair means, I would just say that, have patience. Good things take time, and it will all be worth it, right? I have been through this entire journey where right from my first year of college, whenever it came to competitive programming, attempting any contest, I made sure that when I'm sitting in a contest, I am indifferent to all the things that are happening around me. I never went and asked my friend that, okay, how do I solve this problem? In fact, even when I was stuck on very difficult problems, like you might remember that, almost 1 to 2 years ago, we used to have Code Chef long contests, right? During these contests, you used to get 10 days to attempt a contest. And a lot of people used to talk to their friends, they used to cheat. And I can tell you, in my entire 4 years of competitive programming journey, there hasn't been a single problem, a single contest where I've gone and asked somebody for help during a contest. Outside the contest, you're always free to ask your friends for help. But during the contest, if you make it, your habit, that, or if you put it in your checklist that you are never going to ask for help to anybody, trust me, it is going to pay off at the end. You will not see the benefit of it right now. You will see your peers cheating and they're getting some good offers, or they might be doing very well in a short term. But in the long term, you will see that you're much better off than them, right? And one of the other things where this will help you is when you want to switch your job. I mean, let's suppose you're in a company. Now, let's suppose you want to switch your job. You are somebody who has done a lot of competitive programming. You're really good at problem solving. When it comes to now preparing for interviews, it will hardly take you 1 or 2 weeks. But when it comes to people who are actually cheating, they will again look out for ways in which they can cheat. And there will be an end to it, right? After a point, you will also be tested on things that you're doing on your job. It is not like after 5 years of working in a company, you will still be asked these difficult standard DSA problems. It will not be the scenario. You will also be tested on what you have done in these 5 years. And if you have cheated all your way to the company, think about it. What will you do inside the company, right? So again, this is just my request. Don't cheat. But ultimately, the ball is in your court. You are free to do whatever you want to do with your life. Right? If somebody wants to jump from a hill, I can only tell them that, okay, don't jump. But if they've made up their mind, well, it's on them. Okay. So that is it, guys. That is all that I wanted to talk about in this session. I think you've got good enough clarity now. What happens in an online coding test and how do you prepare? Right. Let me look at the chat once again. Somebody saying interview के लिए best resources बता दीजिए. Go and check out Striver's YouTube channel, which is called Take You Forward. Right? Let me put it in the chat. You can check out Take You Forward. This is an amazing resource for preparing for DSA and interviews. Abhishek is saying people cheat because of only people like you. Okay, because of only people like you shortlist students or get referrals based on their CF ratings. Okay, so Abhishek, I'll tell you one thing. I have never referred a student without actually talking to them or without actually looking at their Codeforces profile in depth. What do I mean by in depth? Your rating on Codeforces does not mean anything to me. Of course, if you're an expert on Codeforces, it gives me more motivation to check out your Codeforces profile compared to a newbie on Codeforces. But at the end of the day, if I am supposed to refer you, I will never refer you on just on the basis of your Codeforces rating. Okay. And trust me, I've referred quite a lot of people at the companies that I've worked, and I've never referred somebody who's incompetent, who has cheated their way, or who has just a rating and does not have any credibility. Right. So all these people who think about this scenario that people get referrals because they have a rating on Codeforces, trust me, nobody really refers you just on the basis of your Codeforces rating. They're obviously going to open your Codeforces profile. And I'll tell you why that happens. See, when I'm referring somebody, it is like me going to my employer, right? And telling them that this is the candidate that I find really good. What will happen when the interview process starts? Let's suppose I refer somebody who is a candidate master on Codeforces, who has cheated their way to a candidate master on Codeforces. What will they do? They will perform terrible in the interview. My manager is going to come and tell me that, okay, Priyansh, what are you really doing? How are you really referring these kind of people? Okay. People who are right now in colleges, you might not understand the scenario. But once you start working, every single action that you put across in the company, it has an impact. Okay. It's not like you will go and tell your manager that this is an amazing person. The manager is going to spend 2-3 days interviewing this person. And if they perform terrible, your manager is not going to say anything to you. It's not like that. Okay. When you do something, when you vouch for somebody, it has to come from you. You are held responsible for that. Okay. So even if somebody is referring you just by looking at your Codeforces rating, trust me, they're not really doing very well, for themselves. Okay. And also one more thing. So when people refer candidates, they also get referral bonus. Okay? So if you're referring somebody for your company, you get a referral bonus. So people usually want to refer good candidates. They don't want to refer candidates who have cheated or who just have a rating metric on their resume. Okay. So I hope, Abhishek, that answers your doubt. Okay. So somebody saying AdCoder beginner contest is best for practicing or not. AdCoder beginner contests are great. Again, guys, don't spam. If you spam like this, I'm going to ban you from the channel. Okay. So don't spam. Here, the whole motive of doing the session is to tell you how things work, is to help you. It is not to create a ruckus here. So maintain some decency. Okay, let me see. Any other doubts, guys? So Aman is saying, what is a good enough rank in an international contest like Hacker Cup for good impact? Assume 20,000 people are attempting it. If you're in the top 1% of any contest, it's a big deal. Okay. So try and aim for top 1% in any contest. It's a big deal. How much rating skill can we expect after completing CP31 sheet? I don't know. It depends on how many contests you attempt. So I don't really like the idea behind people asking me questions like, okay, how much rating do I need to get on code forces to do very well in an interview? How many problems do I need to solve on code forces to get to candidate master on code forces? All of these questions are not really valid because everyone has a different level. Everyone has a different starting point. When you're starting a competitive programming journey, you cannot say that when you and your friend are starting at the same point, you are going to get the same results with the same amount of effort. Everyone is going to get different results with the same amount of effort, right? So it is completely subjective. It depends on how much effort you are willing to put in, right? But if you're solving a CP31 sheet, I can tell you that if you've completed it, you will gain a lot of insights into like ABC or D problems on code forces. Okay. Cool. I think that is it for this session. Now, as we're towards the end of the session, I also want to talk about TLE Eliminators, which is something that I've been running for about 3 years now. In case you feel that this is not something for you, you have learned enough from the session, and you don't want to learn about or you don't want to get to know about TLE Eliminators, this is the point where you drop off, right? I'm not forcing you here to attend the session completely and look at what I have to talk about after this point, right? But this is the point where it was the end of this session. If you're not interested in knowing about TLE Eliminators. Okay, cool. Thanks for attending. So let me talk about TLE Eliminators. This is a competitive programming course that I have been running for about 3 years now. Right? It's not something that is new in the market. It's not something that we launched last week or last month or even last year. We launched it in April 2021. Right? And so far we've completed 3 years of it. We have taught close to 7,000 students so far. Right? And among these 7,000 students, majority of these people have become specialists or experts on code forces, and they've also cracked their dream jobs by acing the online coding tests, right? Again, this is a competitive programming course. It is not meant to prepare you for online coding tests or for interviews. The part where you perform very well in an online coding test or the interview is just a byproduct. If you become very good at competitive programming, the chances of you performing well in an interview or a coding test are pretty high, right? So it's just a byproduct or something which is bound to happen. Okay. Now, what exactly is TLE Eliminator? So it's a competitive programming course which has been divided into 4 levels. Why have we done that? Because see, when you're starting your programming journey or when you're starting your look at your competitive programming journey, right? For instance, if you're at a stage, if you're at a particular stage in your competitive programming journey, there are going to be a set of topics that you will have to master to improve further. Right? For example, if you are somebody who's starting out your programming journey, you should learn about C++. You should learn about a programming language, right? Whereas somebody who is, let's suppose, already a specialist on code forces, these are the type of people who don't really care about learning a programming language. You need to learn advanced concepts like dynamic programming, graphs, trees, etc. Right? Yeah. So for this, what we've done is that we've divided our entire competitive programming training into 4 levels, right? All of these 4 levels have different topics and they require different level of skill set before you join them. So based on your current skill set, you can choose to join a level. As you increase the level number, the difficulty of the concepts also increases. Level 1 is the easiest. Level 2 is a bit harder. Level 3 is harder than level 2 and level 4 is the hardest, right? And talking about online coding tests specifically, level 3 and 4 are those levels where we teach the concepts which are heavily asked in online coding tests. Give me 1 second, I'll grab some water. Okay, I hope I am audible. I just had a very bad cough right now, so grab some water. But yeah, talking about the other things. So at TLE Eliminators, we believe that live classes are the best way of learning. So all our classes at TLE Eliminators are live, right? We have 1 to 2 theory classes every single week in the level that you join in. After the classes, we also give you daily curated practice problems. From Monday to Friday, we will be giving you 2 to 3 daily curated practice problems based on the concepts that we have taught you in the classes, right? And these problems are not only meant to not only helpful for you to master the concepts that we've taught you, but they also help you develop consistency as you continuously solve problems, right? Apart from this, we also have dedicated video solutions for all our practice problems. We believe that at the end of the day, you should be getting the solutions for all the practice problems, right? So every single practice problem at TLE has a dedicated video solution available as well. Apart from this, we know that you will be getting stuck in practice problems from the course and also from outside the course, right? So for this, we have an instant doubt support facility. This is also our most loved feature at TLE Eliminator so far. And in the last 3 years of running TLE Eliminators, we have resolved close to 48,000 competitive programming doubts, right? Which is like a pretty big number. I can't really imagine myself doing this on my own. Therefore, we have our entire team of competitive programming mentors at TLE Eliminators. All the mentors which are there at TLE Eliminators, these are people who are experts and candidate masters on code forces. So these are already among the top 1% competitive programmers in India. Therefore, any doubts that you have related to competitive programming or related to any coding problems, these are the people who will be able to help you in the best possible manner, right? Apart from this, we also have our curated topic-wise contests. So when we are teaching you the concepts, various topics at TLE Eliminators, we believe that just solving problems is not enough. You should be attempting contests where you can test your knowledge of the concepts that we have taught you, right? And lastly, we also have post-contest discussions. So people who have already been following this YouTube channel of TLE Eliminators for a good enough amount of time, you might have seen that we post these contest discussions or these video solutions of our contests from Code Forces, Code Chef, Lead Code, right? Why do we do this? Because we feel that upsolving contests is something that helps you learn a lot, right? So you might have seen these recorded videos that we post after every contest on our YouTube channel, right? The live discussion actually happens for those people who are enrolled in TLE Eliminators, right? So the live discussion happens for TLE students and the recording is posted on YouTube so that everyone can benefit from them. Okay, so this is what students at TLE Eliminators say about us. These are just 4 testimonials that I'm presenting in front of you. We have close to 50 to 60 other testimonials which students have given us, right? So you can check out what students actually talk about us, right? And you can even go on to LinkedIn or Twitter and you will see people talking about their journey of doing a course at TLE Eliminators. If you feel if you relate to their journey and if you feel this is something that can help you, be sure to check out our website. Okay, so I'll move to the next slide. I think this is something that you can check out on your own. You can also go onto our website and look at this. Let me present it once. One second. Okay, so I have my screen is visible. This is the website that we have. Right now, TLE Eliminators 11.0 sale is already live. So what this means is that our 11th batch course is already live. You can go and enroll in it. The classes will be starting from the 3rd of July, right? And you can check out all the courses here, level 1, 2, 3, 4. All of these have certain prerequisites. All of them have a certain list of topics that we will be teaching you in these levels, right? And yeah, you can also watch this video on the website, which will tell you how you can choose the right level for yourself. Okay, and you can also check out the respective course videos, right? So we have a course video here. You can check out this video, which talks about all the things that are there in this course. So which is there in all the 4 levels. And you can check out the other testimonials. Like I said, we have a lot more testimonials than these, which have been posted on the website. You can look at what people say about us here. Okay, and also the CP31 sheet, you can check it out here itself. Right. 1 second. I think I did not share the right tab. So yeah, these are the videos that you can check out for every level. Okay. Every single course has a video. You can check it out to know more about the level. And you can finally check out this video to decide which level you want to enroll in. Specifically for those people who are preparing for online coding tests and who have already done DSA by themselves, I would recommend going for either level 3 or 4. Right? So level 3 has these topics: advanced binary search, interactive problems, 2-pointers, advanced number theory, combinatorics, greedy, hashing, tries. Whereas level 4 has these topics: dynamic programming, generic trees, graphs, disjoint set union, segment trees, and sparse tables. Okay. So yeah, you can check this out on your own. I'll just share the link of this in the chat with you. Right, 1 second. Cool. I think that is it. Let me see if I have any other slides. I think, yeah, that is it that I had for this session. In case you have any other questions, feel free to write them in the chat and I would be happy to answer them. Okay. And again, giving a disclaimer here, this session was not meant to promote TLE. I just wanted to talk about it because some people would have wanted me to talk about it, right? But you can learn all the things that I've told you in this session on your own, in free on YouTube as well. So somebody saying, after doing CP, how is your hair in such good condition? So let me tell you, my hair is not in a very good condition. It's just that I make my hairstyle in a way so that you don't see all the bald spots. But I do have a lot of hair shedding, right? I don't really have very good hair. In fact, I have a very terrible hairline. You just won't see it because my hairstyle is like that, right? I mean, whenever I'm going for a bath, I see a lot of hair falling. Somebody saying, will you be offering free slots? Okay, I think I should be addressing this as well. So in TLE Eliminators, we believe that there are some people who are really passionate about competitive programming, but they can't really afford our courses. So for this, we have this concept of free slots as well. For every TLE course, we have some free slots. For example, in TLE Eliminators 11.0, we have 20 free slots, right? I think the form was already released a couple of days ago. We haven't finalized all the, all the 20 candidates. I am still going through all the responses. I am done reading almost 80% of these responses. So yeah, it's really time consuming. So you will have to wait for some time. This time we've got around 700 responses. So it's really difficult for me to read all of them myself, right? But yeah, most probably by tomorrow, since tomorrow is Sunday, so I will get a lot of time. By tomorrow evening or maximum by Monday evening, you should be getting the results of the free slots. How to prepare for core subjects like OS, DBMS, OOPS. You should check out this channel called Gate Smashers. Okay, Gate Smashers has all the content on object-oriented programming, operating systems, database management, computer networks, right? All the things that you need for computer science fundamentals. So Aman is saying, can't you drop the fees, course fees for under 2,000 for level 3 and 4? I think, Aman, that will not be possible for us. We've been having the same cost for about, I think, 3 batches now. All the salaries of people that work at TLE Eliminators, they have grown with time. All the expenses that we have at TLE Eliminators, they have all grown with time. But over the last 3 batches, which is equivalent to almost a year, we have kept the cost to be constant, right? So I don't think lowering down the cost would be feasible for us, right? But yeah, I would still recommend, like if you would have filled the free slots form, I would see if we can do something about it, right? In fact, last time what we also did is that last time we got 400 responses for this free slots. So I found almost 50 out of them to be good enough, but I could only shortlist 20. So for the rest 30 of them, I mailed them personally and I gave them a 30% discount, right? So even if you are not getting a free slot, if I feel that your response is really genuine, but I can't really shortlist you for a free slot, I would send you a mail personally to give you a significant discount, which can help you ease the burden, ease the financial burden to purchase a course. So Mohit is asking how much practice problems in code forces should we look for? How much practice problem in code forces should we look for editorial in 15 to 30 minutes? I think for very easy problems, like if you are 1000 rated on code forces, for example, or let's suppose if you're 1600 rated on code forces, all the problems which are lower than 1300 rated on code forces, you shouldn't be spending more than 15 to 30 minutes on them in terms of thinking about the solution. So for them, you can look at the editorial. But problems which are of your own level or which are harder than your current skill set, you should spend, I think, 45 to 60 minutes before you look at the editorial. Okay. Ashwin is saying, I have enrolled in course 2. Can I upgrade it to level 3 by paying? Yes. So at TLE, we also have this mechanism where even after you have chosen a level, you are allowed to switch between levels, right? The reason why we do this is because, see, every single course at TLE is about 3 months long. We don't want you to take up a course and then regret your choice. So until the first week of the course, we allow you to change your course level as well. Okay? So there is you can go on to Discord if you have already purchased the course at TLE. You can go on to Discord. We have shared a link through which you can upgrade or downgrade your course level. Right. So this is automated. You can do it on your own, but that will only be applicable until 1 week after the course starts. 1 week after the course starts, we expect that you're in the right level. Okay. So it's not like you purchase a level at TLE and then you're not in the right level, so you regret the next 3 months. You are allowed to change your level as well. Thanks, Aman. Aman says he liked the stream. Thank you, Aman. Okay. Any other doubts, guys? Anything apart from this session that you want me to address? So I haven't been very active on my own YouTube channel, but I thought I'll do this video on TLE's channel. So any doubts that you might have, feel free to ask. So somebody saying Gate Smashers is in Hindi. I am from South. Any English resources? I will have to see. Let me see on YouTube. I am not sure if there are good enough English resources on computer science fundamentals. Yeah, you can check out Nizo Academy. You should check out Nizo Academy. Nizo Academy has good enough lectures on computer science fundamentals. So Jatin is saying, are you reading Google Forms for free slots? Yes, I am in the process of doing that. 80% of it is already done. But right now I have a huge number of responses. This time we have close to 700 responses. So it's very difficult for me to do that quickly. Okay. So yeah, guys, I think that is it for this session. In case you want to check out TLE Eliminators, I'll quickly share the link again. Okay. Feel free to sign up on the website, or even if you're not interested in purchasing a course, feel free to check out the CP31 sheet. It is going to be really helpful for solving non-standard problems for online coding tests. Okay. Thanks again for attending this session, and I wish you all the best for your preparation journey. For those of you who are worried about cheating in online coding tests, don't worry. If you're not cheating, you're doing the right thing. And if you're cheating, stop it right away, because it's not going to be really helpful in the long run. Okay, cool. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you for attending the session again.